I think this is super interesting, and on the individual's level, on the personal level of each individual human, it creates more opportunity to become who you want to be and not be constrained by maybe some of the barriers that you've had before, and from that up to the scale of an entire country. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
To learn from others regarding the real-life challenges, pitfalls and application possibilities of XR and AI, I interview key people from various industries. Subscribe and join me on an insightful journey, and if you or your company has a compelling XR or AI implementation story to tell, feel free to reach out to me to share it. I really hope you will enjoy and learn from this interview with vrPILOT.
Hi, Thor.
Hi, Stefan.
Great to meet you.
Great to meet you.
So we're sitting here amongst a lot of aircraft, and thank you to Greybird for letting us sitting here. vrPILOTs and you, what is that?
Well, in short, it's about the wonders of virtual reality combined with something we both love, aviation.
Yeah.
It actually started with at my old workplace, where we had this laboratory with new emerging technologies like virtual reality. And me, having a pilot background, came into the lab one day and thought, this is cool. Why can't we use this for pilot training?
Yeah.
And that's basically how it all started.
Yeah. So the whole thing is taking virtual reality or extended reality and trying to elevate that into new wonders of aviation training, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As you know, when you put on a virtual reality headset, you immerse yourself in the virtual world. And in the virtual world, everything's possible. You can have things that you don't have in real life or don't have access to in real life, like aircraft. So that's what we have been doing ever since starting. We create these environments for pilots to train things that are not readily accessible in their everyday. And we can do it in a way that enhances their training with overlaying visual displays to aid their learning that they don't have in the real sim or the aircraft.
Right. So the case or the business case, what's the difference? So I think one thing is how fast you learn, I guess, but where's the case for an airline or those who are training? What's the difference? Why not use what they normally do?
Yeah, that's a good question. And as anyone who knows anything about aviation knows, everything is expensive in aviation, hugely expensive. The aircraft, the simulators, everything. So what virtual reality is also capable of is to create cost-effective training environments. It is a fairly cheap training device compared to a full motion simulator or indeed the actual aircraft.
Right.
So what we can use virtual reality for is to create cheaper and more accessible training scenarios for those training scenarios where pilots before had to go into the big expensive simulators to train.
Right. So for a school like we're sitting in here, also the students, I guess, what they can do is they have it so readily accessible, so when they have to pass an exam or a flying skill test, they can more or less sit at home and train.
Yeah, indeed.
Right.
They can.
So accessibility is also a huge thing, I guess.
Accessibility, both in terms of physical accessibility, but also financial accessibility.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess that's one of the things when we talk about extended reality is what it can do, right? In various types of value chains is this accessibility, both seen from a financial point of view, but also seen from when you can get it, and how fast you can get it.
Oh,
accessibility.
Absolutely. And something that we utilize a lot, and something that I know that you deal with yourselves, is accessibility across different physical locations.
Yeah, exactly.
With our products, we can have one person wearing a VR headset in the US, another person wearing another VR headset here in Denmark, and they can train together in the same virtual cockpit. So they feel like they sit just like we sit, you and I right now, but being miles and miles apart.
So a two-person crew that has to pass an exam next Friday, but they are two different places in the world because they're actually working they can sit in their hotel rooms and actually train together for something that they have to do next week.
Exactly.
That's,
and, it opens up a million different possibilities for sharing instructor resources across multiple physical locations, saving travel costs when you have to book a hotel room, if you have to fly into a specific training location, all these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And also something that does not only apply to the field of flight crew training, but indeed also product development, as I'm sure you can talk a lot more about.
Yeah, and exactly what we're looking at. We're coming from the more software development point of view and team augmentation, and what we're trying to do is basically answer the question of how can we deliver locally the best software developers the world has to offer. And you and I know they're not sitting one place. They're dispersed all over the world. So XR, virtual reality, and all these new tools that we're getting is what we're utilizing actually to create a virtual team of super skilled people that are then trained to access some local company Monday morning, sitting right there.
Yeah, it removes some of the barriers that we have had before that would perhaps keep us from getting the people we actually wanted because they were too remote or... Yeah, so this about breaking down the distance barrier across whatever software development, flight crew training, it could be anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
An interesting thing is actually if you look at it from a financial perspective, if we're looking at it from a company and even if you're looking at it from a country, you're looking at something called GDP, right? And what moves GDP? It's typically three things. It's debt growth, how much debt do we have or increase or decrease. It's population growth, and it's our ability to develop. And if you look at it, what we're trying to do is actually increase that immensely or decrease it seen from a financial point of view, but because we're bringing people from around the world locally, so suddenly the population growth locally is increasing immensely. And if you're looking at it from a financial perspective, we can decrease the cost, so our debt is lowering because our capabilities are increasing immensely.
I think this is super interesting, and on the individual's level, on the personal level of each individual human, it creates more opportunity to become who you want to be and not be constrained by maybe some of the barriers that you've had before, and from that up to the scale of an entire country, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you have so much experience in this, and that's also fascinating to learn from you because we're also trying to introduce, XR, extended reality, into the company. But what are the challenges, as you see it, that you've learned? Because you are really a first mover, more or less, as I've seen it. You've been doing this for 2-3 years now, right? And you really had the real life experience, both from being some of the first movers, introducing physical hardware, VR glasses, and testing them out to having them into the real life.
Indeed, yeah. So
because it's not only roses, I guess.
It is indeed not. No. I think that what most people think when they see virtual reality glasses and stuff like that, they think fancy gadgets and something that is new and it's sort of a hype. It still is to some extent, although virtual reality has a long history behind it. But I think one of the things that one should be mindful of when introducing virtual reality is to, first of all, make something that makes sense to your audience. So create a very specific use case. Yeah. Everybody has seen these generic use cases of virtual reality. But people have seen enough of that. Instead, take a very specific use case, something that your target audience knows. For example, an aircraft cockpit. Even make it the aircraft model that they know, whoever pilots you're trying to present this to. Or a very specific use case of software development within a team. And then display that. So you try to show the specific use cases and not just we got the general idea. Yeah. Everybody got the general idea of virtual reality now. Now we need to see it on a more applied level.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there is that. There's also a barrier in some people might have a little bit of apprehension towards wearing the headsets. And it is a combination of different things, I think. Some are afraid to get motion sickness. Yeah. Some don't like to look like a fool, because undeniably you do look a little bit goofy when you put on these headsets. But that is only until everybody has gotten used to seeing people wearing these headsets.
Yeah.
So having a very nice and informal introduction to the technology, to the users, I think is very important, and has been the key for us when introducing this at airlines or flying schools.
Right. Interesting. Where do you actually see the next 5 years? I guess you're really looking into the technology yourself for how you can take this further, but with all your studies, where do you envision we are going the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years if other companies watching this and wanting to embark on a journey? Where can they look into?
Right. So first, looking back the past couple of years, first, people have seen virtual reality, as I said before, as a kind of a gimmick, a kind of flashy thing. But we are now at the point where people have started to take VR seriously. Yeah. People on a broader scale are like, okay, this concept can be used for really, really good things. Now we want to apply it to our different use cases. In my case, flight crew training. Yeah. So we are seeing a pretty big ramp up of different operators, airlines, flying schools, military, type rating centers, requesting this technology. And it's becoming more and more a part of their everyday operation, and more a part of the established landscape. Yeah. And I think that's a key word, because just like we now have a laptop, everybody has a laptop or an iPad or something like that. I believe the next 5 years will take the virtual reality headset and put it in that category, along with the established devices that we use for everyday development, business, training, whatever.
Exactly. One of the things that we envision, one thing is that we feel that we have even though we are a dispersed team, we're sitting right here, whether it's going to be with avatars or whatever, how we're going to do it, it's one thing. But another thing is also when you look at, for instance, mixed reality, where you can actually sit and press things and all these kind of things. Looking at it from a software design point of view, just the augmented reality, if we can sit with a customer and we're a team of 5 designers sitting around the world, sitting with locally a customer that suddenly sees on screen or virtually what they're going to have on the fly, is going to be a tremendous thing when we're sitting designing stuff for them instead of this static thing that they're seeing today.
Absolutely. I myself, just like you, have a background in the industry, and we all have these horror stories about mismatched expectations of a product that has been developed elsewhere, and maybe some specifications that were not quite as sharp as they should have been.
Exactly.
So I think there's a huge potential in eliminating a lot of these small mistakes that can grow into super big ones, because it just gives you a lot of these on-site options that you wouldn't have otherwise in Teams meetings or in emails or 2D drawings or whatever you would have.
Exactly.
Absolutely, I totally agree.
Thor, thank you so much for taking the time here. If people are super curious about vrPILOTs, how can they get a hold of you? Where are you?
We're on LinkedIn. Mainly on LinkedIn. Just vrPILOT on LinkedIn, or our homepage vrPILOT.aero.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure being here, Stefan.
Very much. Thank you for taking your time.
Always.